Good morning, everyone. We are so excited to bring you this topic today. Your favorite instructor, Rochelle, is here. And I
Hi,
just wanted to give you
everyone.
I just wanted to give a few housekeeping items before I turn it over to Rochelle. Um, as a as a note, we have our attendee chat. We love using attendee chat. And so if you could just pop into that area and let us know where you're joining from, that's also one of our favorite things. And Rochelle's already put it in here. She's chat here. So thank you, everyone. I'm Carrie. So although my name isn't Carrie on here, I'm logged in as Workplace Ed. So thank you, everybody, for finding that. If you have any questions, there's a question function at the top if you want that more private. Or, of course, feel free to put your comments into the chat. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Rochelle, I just wanted to give you just the tiniest little intro here. Rochelle's been engaged in educational settings for over 20 years. And if you've ever seen her, you would think, okay, were you like 3 when you started? But now we've been so lucky to snag Rochelle on our WEM team and to have her as an essential skills instructor. And the truth is, Rochelle isn't a stranger to learning herself, right? So she is increasing her capacity by completing her graduate degree in leadership, which I'm so thrilled about. And of course, just as a little side note, if you're any of you are like I am, I'm so curious about every single one of you. I want to know all the details of your life, favorite colors, all this sort of thing. But just as a detail for Rochelle, um, when she's not teaching essential skills, she has 3 kids and she's cheering them on in all of their athletic endeavors, which are many. And so, Rochelle, thank you so much for being willing to share this topic with us. So I'm going to try to be quiet, which many of you know is difficult for me. So take it away, Rochelle. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Carrie. Good morning, everyone. I so wish we could do this in person. I've met some of you, and man, if you could just. Carrie and I are not broadcasting together today. We're in 2 different offices right now, but would we ever have a blast teaching you in person too? We do have things coming up, so you can always check webinterlake.ca. You can see what courses are coming up for the fall. We're just rolling out a huge lineup coming in the next day or 2. This is not a picture of me on the home screen, and it's not a picture of Carrie either, but we're sure glad to meet you today and be able to share this time together. Reliability is huge, and I know even someone signing in today had a hard time finding where the login info, and they needed us to be reliable. So thank you for signing up, showing up, working with us, and being here. Our mission at WEM is to help people develop essential skills needed for work, learning, and for life. That's kind of the whole picture. And those essential skills we focus on are really 9 that make you successful in the workplace, regardless of industry, regardless of where you are on that totem pole. What we all have in common is our need for the 9 essential skills to be at work in our careers. Now, this is our space in Selkirk, where we have a West Center, and that's just an acronym for Workplace Education and Skills Training Center. And we are excited. We've just moved into a new facility. I hope you'll get to come see us this fall when our doors can open again. But no matter where you are in the province, we're probably close to you. So, of course, our head office is in Winnipeg. But as you can see, we have these West Centers all over the province, north to south, east to west, and we would sure love to engage with you in any way. So you can always contact us and we will connect you to the closest place. And what we do, as you know, you did not have to give your credit card to join us today. And so we want to thank the funders that make that possible. It was twofold. We get funding to develop the curriculum, and then we also get funding to deliver it and to run our programming and West Centers and so on. So I encourage you to visit wem.mb.ca to see all of what we offer in these various locations. And, with your happy emoji, your clapping emoji, let's give these people a hand, because there would be no training if it weren't for our funders. So thank you, thank you. Thank you, every level of government that's helped with that. Now, this is such a key word in the workplace, is it not? Reliability. And in a lot of the research we do about it, we see that that word's a little bit interchangeable with dependability. And reliability, just straight up dictionary definition, the quality of being trustworthy or of performing consistently well. Show me with an emoji if you have someone you work with that meets this description. I totally do. I have someone who totally is the definition of reliability. Their picture should be in the dictionary. Do you have anyone like that where you just know I can count on that person? Absolutely. They always show up. I love it. You are so fortunate if you have one of those. And the people around you are fortunate if you're one of those. I won't ask you to disclose if you think you're the dictionary definition of that or not, but certainly because you're here, you probably are. When we look at the various synonyms, what words are interchangeable with reliability? Are not these descriptive words really true of what we look for when we ask someone to be reliable? We want to be able to depend on them. We want them to show responsibility. We want them to show their commitment to the team or that solidity in what they're doing. We want a sureness and a trustworthiness in them. And these all fit into being reliable. We talk so often about being on teams, right? I bet there's no one joining us today who works completely alone and you never have to interact with people. All of us have to. Even if the team aren't our colleagues, we find ourselves having to interact with vendors and clients and so on. And teams are just a bunch of individuals put together. And what each individual brings to the table helps shape the identity of that team. Now, when it comes to reliability, reliable people are what make happy teams because we want to work with people we can count on, right? So when we know we can count on our colleagues, it just ups the ante on that happiness or that trust that we have as a team. And the biggest ripple effect of that is that reliable or happy teams end up producing happy customers. That's always the end goal, right? For your company, your organization, your nonprofit, it's always to reach more people and to satisfy a need. And so it's interesting that to get there, it starts with that individual contribution of reliability. Now, we all are joining together from different workplaces, different industries, actually, and there's a lot of workplaces that demand reliability. They will not tolerate a lack of reliability. Can we just brainstorm together using our chat? Can we brainstorm what type of workplace, business, industry, job, what type of place absolutely demands reliability? Like if you're not reliable, you're probably going to get fired. You're probably going to get disciplined. Can you think of some that are so demanding of that? Hospitals, yes. Healthcare, absolutely. Reliability is absolutely huge. Schools, banks, law enforcement, accountants. Oh my Lanta, absolutely. You guys are nailing it. And so there's some industries where reliable might be the first thing before your brains, before your training, whatever. If you're not reliable, you're just not going to be able to stick around. And I was just told a story this weekend actually from someone in law enforcement. They're in a specialized unit, and in their unit you actually cannot just switch shifts with each other. You need a whole permission thing to be able to switch shifts. And so they follow that protocol and they do it. But what's really interesting is they have a thing that if you've switched a shift with someone else, if that someone else does not show up on that shift, you're actually punished. So you're demanded to come in to drop whatever you're doing and to be present. Plus, you go through a punitive process for being late for work or not showing up for work when it wasn't even you. It was the person who was supposed to replace you. And what they found with that policy alone is there are no no-shows because nobody wants to do that to their friend. They don't want to let their friend down and have their friend be in this bad place. So we see that companies actually work in a whole methodology on how to deal with employees in a punitive way because they find sometimes that reliability isn't instinctive or it's not the hugest value for everyone. So I know in your own workplace, you would be able to describe why reliability matters. And if it has to do with money, safety, production, engaging with other people, the stakes are quite high, the risks are quite high, right? But let's think of ourselves not as the leaders and contributors in this moment. Let's think of ourselves as the customers, as the average Joe. And we recognize that really we do have a value in our culture that we live in, where reliability is actually a huge value that most of us share as a common thing. We count on our car to be reliable. We count on the postal service to be reliable. It's why tracking numbers exist, right? Because we're making people promise that they will be reliable and do what they said they would do. Investments how about our cell phones? You know, your phone's down for like 30 seconds or slow because you're in between towers. It's not good enough. We have a huge demand that that phone is going to work 24/7 no matter where we are in the province. And of course, vendors, airlines, I mean, that industry is huge. I heard about one airline where for every hour they're delayed, I think the fine starts at $40,000 the first hour. Like, it's high stakes for not being reliable. And of course, as customers, aren't we demanding about food or service, right? If your local coffee shop gets your coffee wrong, I've seen people just melt down over that. Now, we could do a whole other webinar about why we don't want to be those people. But really, people have come to depend on reliability to keep all their plates spinning for all their various responsibilities. And what we find in common over and over is no matter what industry you're in, every employer wants reliability. Some employers want other things. This isn't the only thing. You know, of course, we talk about the 9 essential skills. They're looking for a portfolio of skills that you bring to the table. But the reliability factor is absolutely huge. Hiring managers, they dig for this in the interview process. They dig for this in the reference checks. This is what they're after. Is this person going to show up? And are they trustworthy? It's interesting. I did a roundtable with a couple leaders just this past week, and knowing we were going to talk about reliability, I was gleaning from them and saying, talk to me about your talent. Talk to me about your people resources. Talk to me about what matters to you. And these are quotes from them that blew me out of the water. The one leadership gal said, I will promote reliability over talent every time. Every time. So you could be the high flyer, talented, educated, really, really naturally gifted at what you do, experienced in what you do. But if you're not reliable, the next guy is getting the job. She was emphatic about that. Another person at the table said they have learned to develop a lot of patience about a lot of things, but reliability is actually what gives someone credibility in their eyes as the manager. And they were really bold. They said, you want a raise? Be reliable. It's just that simple. It wasn't about production, which really surprised me. It wasn't about meeting goals and commissions and generating production in time. It was, be reliable. I will promise you a raise. Absolutely. And of course, we've heard this quote probably, you know, that creativity is worth nothing if it's not served with reliability. Ideas are just vapors without actually backing it up with action. So when we think about that, there's opportunities to expand and there's opportunities to meet customer needs if we are reliable, we do need to take a look inside and say, okay, what does that look like? What do I have to do? What does that look like for me? And what does that look like in my workplace? Now, one thing that we don't have enough time to do when we do a 30-minute talk on reliability like this is we can't really break into the different industries and talk about how reliable means something different based on a customer's need or the industry that you're in. That's some homework you can do on your own, or we can dig into that in a longer session. But it is something to consider that what's counted as reliable does look different in different workplaces. It's not always just showing up, it's also what you do when you show up. So do look at this through the lens of your own industry, your own workplace. And here's some things we'll have in common. The first point to talk about is how we need to manage our commitments. And we do need to recognize who is our first commitment to. Is it the supervisor? Is it the big boss? Is it the colleague? Who holds my first attention that I have a minimum amount of things I must get done? I have a time I must show up. Who's the voice that's demanding that? And in that, it helps us set that parameter so that we can say no to the other projects or the other departments or the other needs, knowing I have to reach these goals first because it's clear who signs my paycheck. I need to meet those needs by that person, and then I could consider the other things to reach out to. Because there's always above and beyond, right? And so often you're not going to be asked to think what are the above and beyond things. But one of the measures of reliability is the leader knowing, hey, those people don't just do the bare minimum. They seem to be contributing more. I can count on them to pull the load with my company. And so often we work on how to say no and to set up boundaries. And maybe you've even worked with people who love to say, that's not in my job description. Nobody told me I should do that. And there's a lot of no's sometimes in the workplace. And I want to ask you, how many times do you say yes? And it's a tricky one because often you're not asked the question. But if you're walking by the piece of garbage, do you ever stop and pick it up? Or do you need to be asked to do that? Do you have a culture of yeses with your team? Do you have a culture of yeses with you, that you're willing to look outside for opportunities and say, how can we bring this along in a way that blesses the entire company? And when we think that way, we develop this mindset to also see the negative things. So maybe you just went through a big budget cut. There's a lot of companies restructuring right now, some COVID restructuring going on, and there's jobs gone or hours cut or budgets cut, and people are piecemealing things together to try to keep going. And sometimes in the gossip you hear about what people are unhappy with the company, it's really an indicator of somewhere where there's pain. And so what's the piece where you can look and say, is there anything I could contribute? Because the average Joe can see the problem. Somebody not even employed by the company can see the problem. But not everyone can see, create, or contribute to a solution. So your reliability on whether or not you're a minimum weight carrier or you carry a little bit more of the load is absolutely critical. Another thing that came up in that recent roundtable was about communication. And this was like the next thing they said, these leaders, after talking about promotions. They said, oh, please, we must understand that reliability isn't just being a body in a chair or a body in the room. Reliability is about communicating before you're even asked. So are we proactive on when we're calling in different needs and things? Are we taking the initiative and communicating up or outward instead of just waiting for it to come to us? I wanted to do this as two different slides. I think we should have a start slide and a finish slide because there are those of us in this crowd today who are really great at either. So quick survey, who's a great starter? Are you a great starter? Show me an emoji if you're like, I have ideas, I have creativity, I know how to organize, I can do a roadmap, I can get things mapped out, I can flowchart it. That's such a gift, and that's such a unique way certain brains work. And then who out there is a finisher, where you're like, I can take the plan and I see detail, but I know how to break that down into the steps that actually get done, and I know how to measure it? Are you a finisher, where you're like, I know the process, I know how to do this, you know how to do spreadsheets, you're the one who's like, we're going to get it done and meet a deadline? I love it that our group has a few people in both camps. And ideally, we want to be people who can play in both sides of the swimming pool here. This is a fabulous quote. Write this down. Initiative and closure are the bookends of reliability and success. Another thing about that communication and that proactive communication is to recognize that there's actually a time management piece here where time management doesn't just affect you, it actually is how we communicate to other people. So when we can plan our time, when we can properly estimate how long it takes to do something, when we can communicate our plan and deliver on it, that's absolutely huge in being able to communicate with other people. Productivity, never ever an accident. Always the result of a commitment to excellence, intelligent planning, and focused effort. I have a cousin who always says, "Hey, it's just gravy, baby. That's all gravy, baby." Anyone got a crazy cousin like that? I wish she was joining us today so that I could actually hear her laugh about this and she could say it for you. But what she really means by that, it's like, hey, whatever happens, happens. If anything else good happens, that's just gravy on the roast beef. That's all that is. Well, reliability is sometimes thought of as people just want you to get stuff done. Be there, be faithful, get the job done. But it also means that when emergencies and unusual things are happening on your watch, we don't have to worry about you. You know, if you're the key holder who's opening the office door or the store door in the morning, are you the kind of person that if you open the door and saw that the roof leaked, you'd just be calling someone to clean it up? Or are you one who, you know, you're going to set up the wet floor sign, you're going to start mopping it up, you're going to deal with the emergency as you communicate along the way? And then really when those things are in place, that you're there and you get the essentials done, you're there, we can trust you to handle an urgent situation. Well, then when you add the creativity, the effort, the innovation, that's the gravy on the roast. Now, if you're a little bit right brain, you know that the creativity and effort and innovation is the fun stuff. The gravy is the good tasting stuff. But the reliability piece puts it in that order so that the extra innovation, that's the gravy. When we're working with others, one of the things that could undermine your own credibility on whether you're reliable or not is how much you demand credit for what you do. A lot of people want credit just for doing the bare minimum. And employers often say, your credit comes every 2 weeks by EFT. We pay you. That's the credit you're going to get. So don't demand a lot of credit for doing the basics or even sometimes outside the box, because then people say, hey, are they actually being reliable or are they just being self-promoting? Another key piece about reliability, and I'll bet, show me an emoji if you thought this talk about reliability would be all about being on time. Probably. It's only one of the pieces of the pie, but it's a huge piece of the pie. And look at this lovely lady. I just need a happy emoji if you think this is a great retro picture of a lovely gal. This is my mom, and I love this picture of her. But my mom is absolutely the picture of being on time. She's not on time if she's not early. She is just on time all the time. I would say if she's 10 minutes early for everything, that would be a very conservative estimate. But what I've learned about watching my mom operate, she's still like this today and she's retired and she's just early and on time all the time. And what I've learned is actually because she's so punctual, everyone knows they can count on her. It was like this in her career. It's now like this in her voluntary career. And it's like this with her as a grandma. The kids know if she says she's going to be at their ball game, she'll be at the ball game, she'll be early at the ball game, and she'll probably have a Gatorade for them. And so what happens is you build an incredible amount of trust when you're on time for something. And really, we got to look at, what does on time mean? It's sometimes prescribed in the employee manual, but it's also sometimes not spoken about at all. Your boss might be the kind of person who's always running late, so they need you to be early. It might be the reality. Maybe their docket is too full. So what's expected of you? What's implied of you? And if you're not on time, are you communicating that? Can people count on you that that body is going to be there when they say they're going to be there? There's another piece where I heard someone ask this question of an employee recently. They said, Hey, you were here for 7 hours today. Which ones did you work? Ouch, right? Is there an ouch emoji? Zinger. So it's also taking note that being reliable means that when you are at work, you're actually working and doing the tasks. There's a huge component of truthfulness, and this isn't just an absence of lying. This is really being truthful in how you manage and care for assets. Are you reliable in how you do that? Um, are you so committed to telling the truth and coloring within the lines and not exaggerating that if a situation arose, would your employer be able to trust you and back you up over the word of a client or a customer because they've just known how reliable you are? And then can you even say the hard things? Now, the image here is so obvious. A doctor often has to say the hard thing. They probably would rather not tell you you have something wrong with your physical body. It would be better to not tell you that. But they know that the hard moment of that conversation is so critical because it can bring a breakthrough in another way. And so are you positioned that way too, that your company can rely on you to do the hard thing or to say the hard thing for the greater gain down the road? Another way to boost your credibility and your reliability in the office is don't be the ghost. Don't be the one who's never in their cubicle, or when a crisis emerges, you just have to go to the bathroom, or you just sort of never there until the cupcakes show up, and then suddenly you're there for the parties and the announcements and the fun things and the celebrations. Don't get the reputation for being that office ghost, because reliability can always be measured. You can measure, is what they said matching up with what they did? So let yourself be measured to that degree. Keeping a to-do list, we often think that's for ourselves so we can organize our thoughts. That often comforts your boss or your colleague where they know, okay, I can cross this off my list because I see that other person has taken it seriously. They've written it down. I know they're going to get it done. Seeing the details, if this is not your strength, get people around you who help you see the details, who challenge you with the hard questions, because being reliable means I won't just cook the meal, I'll cook it in a manner that nobody will get sick from the meal. So there's details that are so critical. And practice, repeat. Practice, repeat. In fact, the only way to have the reputation and the habit of being reliable is to keep doing it over and over and over. And that's the part that really stinks, but that's the part that actually brings safety, where you trust yourself and your colleagues can trust you too. It doesn't really end, no matter the job, the career, no matter how many times you move around to different places and environments, even on sports teams. There's not really an end when it comes to reliability. It has to be done every single time, and that's what keeps the system safe and functioning. And one parting thought for us all is just recognizing, when does overflow happen? When does it happen that you've stopped investing, and then boom, the overflow finally happens? Well, overflow happens with one drop, right? You fill the vessel up over and over and over, and you don't know which drop it is that suddenly makes the liquid spill over the top. It's that single drop, that one day, that 497,000th time that you've done something faithfully, that's the drop that spills over, where you have the reliable reputation and the reliability, trust factor in your team, and then that opens the doors for the promotions and the raises. Hopefully it's not the 4,700 millionth time, like we say, but recognizing that those little actions we do every day of being reliable, every time showing up and being on time and being able to be counted on, we just don't know the moment that single drop is going to cause huge overflow in your life. And I want to pat you on the back because you put those drops in your vessel today. You showed you were reliable. You showed up for, quote, class today, and you invested in to yourself in your workplace to increase in a brighter way. And so that will bring dividends. It will cause the bucket to overflow. I want to invite Carrie to pop on with me again and just invite you all to visit our weminterlake.ca. We hope you have a great day. Carrie.
Thank you so much, Rochelle. This has been amazing. I know as someone who professes to be reliable, but I'm not like your mom. So I found that really inspiring, and I think we can get a heck yes for this, right, friends? So if we can show our gratitude for Rochelle for the time that she put into this, and as you can tell, she's a passionate person, and thanks again, Rochelle. We appreciate it. Go forth and have an amazing day, everybody. Be reliable.
Bye.